Wisco ripping back at you. Wisconsin weekend. It's raining in May, so I think it's about time I do a little bit of maintenance on this machine, and we're going to be greasing the wheel bearings. A couple of years ago when I bought this in 2020, somewhere in 2020 or 2021, I bought a grease fitting or a bearing grease tool, which is this. It's a Tusk brand. I've used it once. It worked well. All you have to do is take the wheel off, take the castle nut on your hub off, and that's it. Put this on, start greasing her up. Just for reference, wheel bearing greaser, and that's the part number. I believe it is a 44 millimeter. If anybody's wondering, I'll show you the process, and grease just comes out of there as you put the grease gun up to this zerk. So let's go. All right, wheel lugs, 19 mil. So that's what your hub looks like. You got your cotter pin and your castle nut, I guess as I call it, and this is torqued to 180 foot-pounds all the way around, rears and fronts. I'll show you that right now in this handy-dandy book. Wheel hub, castle nut, 180 foot-pounds. So I'll go ahead and take the cotter pin out. I might have extras. You can sometimes reuse them. And to take that castle nut off though, you're gonna need a 27 millimeter deep well. Just to let you know, 27 millimeter to get that castle nut off. Check that. 27 mil. Castle nut. Alright, once you have your castle nut, your cotter pin, your washer off, you got your hub, and then you will need to take your brake caliper off. That's 2 bolts back here. They're 15 millimeter. You're going to need a wrench for the top one. Your socket and your wrench are not going to fit between the nut and your upper A-arm. So just to let you know, 15 millimeter for your brake caliper. And then once that's done, you should be able to just wiggle your whole rotor off here, just like that. And there's your axle. I don't know if we can see in there how well that shows up on camera, but your bearings are in there. So this tool, you'll just have to slide on in here, and then you're just gonna have to play with it a little bit. Let's see if I get that in shot. Just gotta grab your axle, grab this. It doesn't matter which way that grease is going in or which way that grease hole is. Yeah, this spins freely, your bearing spins freely. It only goes in so far. You can't push it in any farther. So once she's in, give her a couple clicks of grease. All right, once she's in, let's give her a couple squirts of grease here. And I just listen for the grease to kind of pop the seal just a little bit. You don't want to grease it where the grease is actually coming out of your seal. Okay, I just heard a little suction. That was about 7 or 8 pumps. I don't see any grease coming out, which is good. I think we're just gonna stop there. Wiggle the axle, and this should pop right off. Comes out clean. That's where the grease is coming out. Hopefully I can get this on camera. If you see right there, I got grease coming out right in the middle. So, and that wasn't there before. So yeah, if you can see that crease, that's where the grease will go in between your bearings. So 3 more to go. Not too shabby. Like I said, you just listen for a little suction or a little bit of pop. You don't want grease coming out the outsides at all of these bearings. For everybody that wants to get technical, here we go in the book. Rear caliper mounting bolts, torque is 46 foot-pounds. And then your front caliper mounting bolts is 30 foot-pounds for torque. So front is 30 for torque. That's your caliper mounting bolts, and then rear is 46. Reversing the process. Once your splines are lined up, you might have to play with your axle a little bit, but for the most part on this machine it was simple. Just figuring out the splines on your hub, and for that just to seed right back in. So, all we got to do is split the brake pads. Good time to look at your brake pads. I'm gonna have to change these this year or early next year. So yeah, you just gotta separate your brake pads, put them back on the rotor, and then be able to put your mounting bolts back on. Slides on pretty simple. Both these bolts are the same length, so you don't have to worry about which one is top, which one is bottom. Thread locker on here. This tube is actually new, huh? Got it all over my finger. I got the bottom one to bite first for lining up, and then top one lines right up also. All right, just snug here, nothing too fancy. She's snug, just let the Loctite do the work. All right, and then clean this washer off just a little bit. I will put a little bit of grease on the back side of this washer. Probably don't need to, but there we are. Castle nut, 180 foot-pounds. And tighten it at first here. Then I'll slowly use the impact and get my torque wrench out. And then once she's at 180, then I'll figure out if it'll line up at a hole or if I gotta back it off just a little bit for that cotter pin. So as the guy's doing this yourself, everybody watching this, or some people are already gonna know that this rotor is gonna move. So I got myself a breaker bar here. I'm just wedging it in to that rotor very nicely, very easily. And I'm able to slowly torque that castle nut. Nothing major. Let the torque wrench do its job here. All right, that's at 150. So I just got to give her a little extra ooga-dooga here. All right. All right. I think that's good. That's my opinion. And then we'll get flashlight here. Like I said, you got holes for this cotter pin, I believe. So if I think I'm at roughly 180, if that shows up on camera, I'll see if I can get the cotter pin in that. If not, I'm just gonna back that nut just off just a little bit. I'm not gonna go any tighter to get to that next one. That'd be too tight. So that's the plan, Stan. Cotter pin's a little beat up, but I think she'll survive. She's trying to go in there. All right. I'm just gonna have to note to self, I'm gonna have to go buy some, I got a cotter pin that's about the same size that I can measure up at the hardware store. So there you go, hub's back on, caliper's back on. Everything's tight, got the Loctite on it. Torque, put the wheel back on, and looks like a lengthy process, but like usual, once you get the first one done, second, third, fourth is just gonna go a little bit easier. All right, I just want to show you guys something on passenger side. The main wheel that turns all the time. This is what, 3 years old. You can see that right there on this. I think it's the outside. Pads for the most part mostly gone on the one side, so just a reminder, The other side looked okay, just like where my finger is now, but it wasn't gone like it is on this inner side. So just something to think about when you guys are thinking about doing the wheel bearings. It's a lot good easy way to knock out both, but I'll have to do a brake job separate here. So whatever, keep running her until I buy some pads here, that probably sooner than later. All right, now I just moved to the front. Just wanted to let you guys know, if you didn't know, the calipers are shaped a little different. They got a little extra shield on here. The bolts are still the same. The bolts are 15 millimeter, but this top one's a little bit hidden, so you are gonna need a 15 mil deep well, just to give you a heads up. Last one. Like I said, line the splines up, and that hub will just slide right on. Grease up the washer a little bit.
Wishing you sunshine, happiness, and love this Mother's Day weekend.
I love you, Mommy.
From True Music Variety with Gus and 106.
Well, the hardest part about this job is just splitting these brake pads to go back on the rotor. That's about the most time consuming. Alright, that about wraps everything up. If you want to continue watching this video, I do have a Super ATV carrier bearing that I put on that I need to take the skid plate off and grease. I'm gonna continue the video doing that. They come stock with a sealed bearing that you can't grease. I upgraded it. I thought something was going on with my drive shaft, and it wasn't, and I thought it was a carrier bearing. So if you want to stay tuned, check that out. But wrapping up the greasing the bearings, like I said, I got the Tusk 44 millimeter wheel bearing greaser. Your lug nuts are going to be 19 mil. Your castle nuts going to be 27 millimeter, and then your brake caliper bolts are going to be all 15 millimeter. So if you want to continue watching, I'm gonna grease that drive shaft bearing, which is kind of a pain, but I'll get more on that in a little bit. All right, with using that ATV drive shaft bearing, I don't recommend buying that if you ever have to replace it. I don't know what the price difference is between a stock drive shaft with the bearing on it or the price of the ATV bearing. I changed that a couple of years ago. I thought I had an issue. That wasn't an issue. It was a pain in the ass to change. It's kind of a pain in the ass to grease. I'm glad it is greasable. I do grease it, man, probably like once a year, maybe once in a year and a half. So it's been, I think, a year and a half since I greased it. The first thing you got to do is not listen to ATV, Super ATV, and buy that nipple extension. I'll show you in a minute. There is no room for that nipple extension. When they came out with this, for Razor or for General, different models, I highly doubt Super ATV tried it on an XP. Pain in the ass. So the first thing you got to get right here is a 90-degree grease coupler. So you got to change the head on your grease gun so you have room to slide that over the grease zerk. So I'll show you that right now. If you've never taken a skid plate off, it's 7 10 millimeter bolts. There we are. Putting that thing on, there's 4 bolts on the top. that probably took about 45 minutes. There's just no room for a ratchet up there. I mean, everything we were using was 1/4 inch. It was quarter turn by quarter turn. It took forever. So let's grease this puppy up. It should only take 3-4 squirts and call it a day. All right, I don't know if you can see that, but you gotta really slide it on there blind and it sticks on. That's the first pain in the ass, is just trying to find it. Obviously you clean it off before you put the extension on there. You got to go in sideways with that 90-degree. It's just a pain. And then I don't know if that comes up, but I gave it about 5 squirts and it's slowly kind of making a crease to the outside. I don't know if that shows up on camera, but I'm stopping. So it's filled on the inside and just barely creeping out. So I'm good to go. But yeah, that's how you grease the Super ATV drive shaft carrier bearing. Don't recommend it. Alrighty. Like and subscribe. Wisco ripping out. It stopped raining, so rip time. Yee!